If your company's database gets hacked and customer data gets stolen, whose fault is it? Most beginners instantly think AWS failed. Your data was on Amazon's cloud, so Amazon must be responsible. That reaction is exactly why the AWS Shared Responsibility model exists. The opening scenario is a trap. It's designed to break the idea that cloud security is fully outsourced. Moving to AWS does not mean AWS handles every security task for you. Cloud security is shared. That crying stick figure represents the real cost of a breach. The angry boss pointing at Amazon represents what companies often do after incidents. Look for one party to blame. Then the giant red X appears because AWS is automatically responsible is usually the wrong assumption. The real question is not who owns the cloud. The real question is which layer failed and who controlled that layer. That is the entire AWS shared responsibility model. The easiest way to understand it is with an apartment building. AWS is the landlord. Amazon secures the building itself. They secure the front gate, maintain the power systems, protect the boiler room, and hire security guards. You are the tenant. Inside your apartment, security is your responsibility. You decide who gets keys, you lock your own door, you protect your valuables. If you leave your apartment unlocked and someone steals your laptop, the landlord is not responsible. Now, translate that directly into AWS. The building is AWS infrastructure. Your apartment is your AWS environment. Apartment keys are IAM credentials. Leaving the door open is a bad configuration. AWS is responsible for security of the cloud. You are responsible for security in the cloud. This distinction shows up constantly on certification exams. Security of the cloud means AWS secures the physical data centers, networking hardware, storage devices, and virtualization layer. If an exam question mentions physical security, hardware failures, or hypervisors, that is usually AWS responsibility. Security in the cloud means you secure your customer data, IAM users, passwords, firewalls, encryption settings, and applications. And this is where most real-world cloud breaches happen. For example, suppose a company accidentally makes a database publicly accessible from the internet. AWS provided secure networking tools, but the customer configured them incorrectly. That is customer responsibility. Suppose an employee leaks IAM access keys on GitHub. An attacker uses those credentials to steal data. Again, the customer controlled identity and access management. Customer responsibility. Suppose an EC2 server is running an outdated operating system with known vulnerabilities. The attacker exploits it because patches were never installed. Since you manage the operating system on EC2, patching is your responsibility too. But AWS absolutely does have responsibilities. If there were a vulnerability in AWS hypervisor itself or a failure in AWS physical infrastructure, that would fall on AWS because AWS controls those layers. This leads to the most useful shortcut in cloud security. Responsibility follows control. If AWS controls the layer, AWS secures it. If you configure or manage the layer, you secure it. Now, here's where beginners often get confused. Your responsibility changes depending on the AWS service you use. With EC2, you manage a lot. You patch the operating system, configure security software, and secure applications yourself. With RDS, AWS manages more. Amazon handles much of the underlying operating system and database infrastructure, while you still manage database access, configurations, and your data. Managed service does not mean zero responsibility. And that is the final takeaway. AWS secures the infrastructure running the cloud, but you secure what you put into and configure within the cloud. So whenever you hear about a cloud breach, stop asking, did AWS fail? Instead, ask, which layer failed and who controlled that layer?